Howdy folks, Moose here. I want to talk about how to get to know your brand new lens. Now there's many blog posts, you see a link on the blog with this video about how to select your new lens, at least my ideas of how you should pick your new lens. But now I want to talk about how you get to know that new lens you've worked so hard not only to pick out but to earn the money to get. How do you learn that lens so it's the best tool for you and your photography when you go out shooting? Now, first and foremost, I've got the 10 to 24 wide angle lens zoom for the D500. It's turning out to be kind of a really great walk around body and lens, this combo. I just got this lens and it made me think about telling you how I go about learning this new lens, any new lens. So first and foremost, the next few weeks, I'm gonna shoot everything with this, no matter what it is. Now, I am at this point at home, so I've got a hummingbird feeder right here. I'm gonna come up close, I'm gonna photograph hummingbirds. There's pictures I posted the last couple of days going down to the flats, photographing the big monsoon storms that come in. So I'm gonna shoot everything you might think a 10 to 24 wide angle zoom might wanna cover and a lot more. So for example, okay, first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get to know where my focus zoom ring is and my focusing. The zoom ring on this lens is fatter, wider than the focus ring. So I'm gonna start learning and teaching myself through muscle memory what those are. Now, why would I want to know about the focusing ring? Right? Because you think I'm shooting autofocus? Well, every single lens has a maximum and minimum aperture. And that maximum minimum aperture is a big part of how you tell your story. So if I get really close to something really wide, I want to be able to manually focus wherever I put that subject in the frame so the eyes, in this, if it's a person, is tack sharp or anything else. So while I use autofocus, I also use the manual focus. So I want to know where those rings are by simple touch. I'll have to look at it. And then I want to know the balance point, whatever the lens might be. Now let's get back to the aperture. Now, depending on the lens you have, learning the aperture and what it can do when it's wide open versus all the way closed down is something I'm going to figure out in the first 2 weeks of owning this lens by shooting everything you could imagine with it. So let's say, for example, I were to switch and go to the 105-1.4, which I've talked about. I'm going to shoot one heck of a lot at 1.4. That's why I spent the money for 1.4. But I'm going to learn what those other apertures could do because, you got to be flexible. You spent the money on the tool, you got to be able to be flexible and use every single attribute that lens brings to you. So I'm going to figure out how it's balanced for hand holding. I'm going to figure out the rings. I'm going to figure out how close it can focus, that minimum focusing distance. I mean, can I get this close? Can I get this close? Can I get this close? That distance is important, especially with a wide angle lens. Those are just some of the things. What else would I might think about? Well, next thing I'm going to think about is I'm going to put a filter on here, 10 to 24. I'm going to put a polarizer. Can I get my fingers in there to rotate it? Do I have to learn how to take the shade off, rotate, put the shade on without looking at it? It's important what we'll do with filtration. There's going to be a Nikon NC filter on here. What happens when I stack that polarizer on here and I go to 10 millimeters? Okay, will I get vignetting? How do you figure it out? Set the lens, close it down all the way, f22, f32. Point up at the blue sky. Take a picture with a polarizer. Do you see darkening corners? Then you know that you can't stack the particular filters you've got on that lens without getting vignetting. I mean, these are things you need to learn about that new lens before you even go out shooting. Now, on this lens here, I have a 10 to 24, very wide. How does it work with straight lines? Straight lines being like side of a building, a window frame, a door frame. We can put the camera so the film plane is perfectly parallel with whatever you're looking at, the wall, the building. And then you're going to move that camera, that lens, so that line is just coming in on the edge of the frame in the viewfinder. Then you can sit there and look at that line. Does it go wonk? Does it go wonk? Or does it stay straight? Now, every lens is going to have amount of distortion. It's going to change depending on how close you get to that subject or how far away it is. You need to know that. Something you need to worry about? Personally, I don't think about that. Now, I just want to know its limitations. I want to know its strengths. That's why I spent 2 weeks married to that new lens. I mean, B&H got this to me in record time. I appreciate that, so I can get started learning this lens before my next project. Now, this lens, okay, or any lens you pick, all right, it's important you understand another very important attribute about it, okay? Can it take abuse? Okay. You need to sit there and feel that zoom, feel that focusing color, feel that lens. Okay. This one is mostly carbon fiber. That tells me one thing real important. It's not going to take any kind of side impact. It's going to have impact damage. Got to know that kind of stuff. Okay. Now, the throw and the focusing. Okay. How far does it take to throw this focusing ring from infinity to minimum focusing settings? I want to know that as well. All that goes into my understanding how this tool, because that's what it is, this tool is going to work in my photography. Lastly, the one thing I'm not going to do, which, and that's just the way I've been, doesn't mean you have to do any of these things. These are just strictly my suggestions. The important thing is I'm not going to take and photograph some chart on a wall because I'm not a chart photographer. I'm a real world photographer. I shoot landscapes and aviation and wildlife and people. And I'm going to take this out and shoot all those real world circumstances and a lot more in those 2 weeks to the point where I'm really comfortable with all this lens can and cannot do. It's a tool. It's going to be in my toolbox. So when I go out to a project, I want to be able to grab that lens out of my bag, stick it on that body, and know with confidence what I can and cannot accomplish. So hopefully that gives you some ideas about how that new lens, however you come about it, that new lens, how you get to make it your best friend, because once it's your best friend, you're going to make your best photographs. So get out and learn your tools, make the most out of them.